Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. Today, I was going to show you the footage from the Toy Guns for Tots shopping spree today, but that's going to have to wait probably till tomorrow because, unfortunately, we find ourselves having to talk about another school shooting. And, I don't want to really talk about the specifics of this case right now because I don't have most of the specifics of this case, and I don't think anyone does right now. But I want to talk about what usually gets discussed when this happens. And it's about, what caused it and how do we prevent it? And it seems like the media and law enforcement, the first thing they want to jump to is if he couldn't have gotten a gun, this kind of thing wouldn't happen. This kind of thing doesn't happen where people can't get guns. Happens all the time in other countries where people can't get guns. If you have been watching the media lately, 6 killed at a school with a machete, 4 killed at a school with a knife, in different countries, in China, in Russia, etc. So it does happen in other countries too, just the tool is different. Here, we're a free country. People can have firearms. We have the Second Amendment, so that tool is available. If it wasn't available, we'd see more kids burning down schools or using knives or whatever. But guns just happen to be the tool used here. And the tool is not the cause of the event. The cause of the event is something else. And if you pay attention to school shootings, usually they are pretty preventable. And it's not by keeping guns out of the equation. No, it's by teachers doing their job, law enforcement doing their job, mental health specialists doing their job. Because there's usually 2 reasons that school shootings occur. 1, gang-related. A lot of the violence you see in schools, a lot of times you hear about that school shooting, then it goes immediately away and you never hear about it again. That's because it's determined to be gang-related. And the media doesn't want to touch that because it doesn't serve any agenda for them. There's no victim. There's no one that people can cry over and go like, ooh, boo-hoo, we're so sad about this person that we want to get rid of guns because we're thinking irrationally. When it's 2 gangs fighting it out, and that's what it turns out to be, there's really no one there to deify and to put forward as a martyr for your political cause. So they tend to drop those pretty quick. Same thing when it's personal grudges between 2 students. They tend to drop that pretty quick, especially if the aggressor is the one that gets shot. So the one that they usually cover the most is the ones that's, I think, the most common, and that is bullied kids. Kids that are just tortured at school. Kids that may not have great home lives. Not everyone's a great parent. Not all kids have good support structures. Not all kids are properly even emotionally developed. So they go to school and they're targets for other children. Children are little assholes. Remember the last school shooter, the Hispanic boy? Remember all the students afterwards, after they were, the media was on the scene and they were all like, oh, we always told this kid he was a weirdo and he was going to be a school shooter and that he was a nut job and blah, blah, blah. So in other words, you just sat there and said, hey, the guy we tortured for the last 3 years, acted out. And that's usually the case. And here's the thing. Schools don't give 2 shits about that. I've seen that firsthand as a student, watching friends of mine get bullied who I had to stand up for. And then I would get suspended for getting in a fight. And I see it even worse nowadays. My son, I've seen it with my son. My son had a transsexual friend at school. And the kid got picked on mercilessly. He ended up having to drop out and go to a private school because luckily his parents had means and he had good parents. But this kid was bullied mercilessly at school. My son would stand up for him and then they would try to expel my son. Not even the bully that attacked them. One time they were trying to shove him in a locker. My son came up, said, leave him alone. The guy said, what are you going to do about it? And my son said, well, if you want to do it to him, you're going to have to do it to me first. And then my son proceeded to kick the shit out of the kid and his buddy. So they wanted to expel my son, not suspend, expel, because he used violence. They were torturing the fucking kid. You've got 15 different accounts from the kid himself where he's been being tortured in school and you've never done anything about it. Because here's the secret. The school doesn't care when popular kids pick on unpopular kids. They only care when someone does something that they can use as a political platform. Like, this kid had a t-shirt that's politically unpopular or not PC. Or, this kid actually had a knife or something dangerous, even though he didn't use it for anything wrong, but we're going to make a case out of this. Or this kid, oh, he used violence. Oh, violence is never the answer. Although they're fine with kids being tortured all day long as the bullies, don't actually use a gun or a knife, I guess. They're okay with them making this kid's life miserable. And like I said, I've had experience with this from inside and outside. This is the number one thing we need to deal with when it comes to school shootings. It's not hard. Believe me, as a mental health professional in the past, it's not hard to target kids who are potential risks. To say, that kid right there has got this going on at home. He dresses differently. His hair's always messy and dirty. Blah, blah, blah. There's lots of things you can see. This kid maybe needs someone to kind of shoulder up to him a little bit, maybe help them blend in a little more if they want to, or make them more proud of how different they are. I think schools should be implementing systems where instead of the popular kids being freaking bullies all the time, and not just the popular kids, there's other kids that have their own issues that become bullies. But that's the way they always love to portray it. They always love to portray it like it's the troubled kid who becomes the bully because he's acting out his own issues on other people. That's not the case. That does happen, but usually it's just popular kids being dicks. Like I said, speaking as a mental health professional, seen it so many times. Ex-mental health professional. And that needs to be done. Something needs to be done about that. Like I said, how about schools implementing programs where when there's a kid that, is a little out of place, he's getting bullied, etc., that you deal with that. That you say, okay, hey, here's a couple of liaisons from the popular crowd. You make sure the kids in your group aren't bullying him, and go over and give him an olive branch. Instead of making him feel more excluded, try to make him feel included. And that's not going to work in every case. Sometimes there's severe mental health issues with the kid. And at that point, you can determine, hey, this kid's got severe mental health issues. But also, even if he's got severe mental health issues, if he's not been given a catalyst by the bullying, etc., and a target by the bullies, his mental health issues won't work themselves out through violence in the school. So you'll be doing a lot of good there. But here's the thing, schools don't care about bullying. If there's a gay kid at school and they're being bullied through, experiencing homophobia, etc., the schools don't care. If you shine a light on it, they'll pretend like they care, but they don't. They don't do anything about it. Like I said, my son's friend who was trans in high school, the school did not care. They were happy when he transferred out because they're like, we don't want to deal with that. That's not what we do. We do what we need to do to make the football team look good, what we do to keep our test scores up for the state funding, and what makes us look PC in the media. That's all they care about nowadays in schools. They don't care about the students, except for when they can glom onto an exceptional student that can throw a football or might, win a Nobel Prize someday. They'll latch onto those kids to share their glory. But as far as taking care of problems in the school system, schools don't care. They really don't care. They don't care about your kid as an individual. They care about the collective, how well the collective does on tests, how well the football team does, and that's about it. They barely care if your kid gets educated. As long as they do well on the standardized tests, they don't really care if they get an education. And they definitely don't care if your kid is bullied. They're the outsider. They're what can I do with that? The two kids. We can't spend that much time with two kids. If we had to spend that much time with every kid, well, you don't have to spend that much time with every kid. You have to spend it with the 2 or 3 kids that are at risk in your school. 97% of the kids don't need that. And in fact, they can be part of the solution if you educated them properly. And then monitored how they behaved. And actually put repercussions if they behave poorly, which they don't face any now. The problems could be solved easily. I've had teachers say it to me so many times before. One of my kids had an IEP where I had to have the teacher sign off every day to make sure he turned in his homework. And one of the teachers hadn't been doing it. I went to the school, confronted them in front of the principal and said, why aren't you doing this? And she said, well, if I had to do that for every student, I'd spend all day doing it. I was like, you don't have to do it for every student. You have to do it for one. And it's state law that says you have to do it. So if you don't want to fucking do your job, then quit right now. But just an example of how they just don't care, and they use that whole, if I had to do it for every student, I'd be here all day. You don't have to do it for every student. Out of a body of 100 students, let's say, maybe one's going to be at issue. One's going to be at risk of doing something like this. And I wouldn't even say one of 100. I'd say it's one of 1,000, one of 10,000 even. And all it takes is a little extra effort. But schools aren't willing to do that. They'd much rather just blame guns, because here's a little secret. Most of the politicians who interact with the school systems, etc., they love using this as anti-gun rhetoric. So half of them, they start drooling when they see a school shooting. So they love them. They're their bread and butter. They live off them. It fuels the people like the Gabby Giffords and the Bloombergs. Every time they see a school shooting, they fucking jizz in their pants. So they don't want things changed. The school doesn't care. So we're going to have to start demanding that schools do something about this, because blaming the tool is getting old, and it's not doing any good for anybody.